Down in the shadows where the courthouse stands, a gavel cracks a fading hands. Judge Gould, they whisper with a crooked grin, played the game where justice don't win. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Prosecutor Mickelin with his papers tied wrote the tale that never saw light. Twisted words in a room of stone, left Rick Allen to stand alone. Who will answer? Who will pay? The sun don't rise on a judgment day. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Officer Holman, eyes like frost, drunk on power, the line got lost. Lock the doors, keep him inside, for justice limps where his footsteps stride.
Hey, oh, folks. It is Wednesday. I know that because I checked before. Let me check again. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, and it is another reading of the Delphi Trial Transcript. At least the trial transcripts that are released to the public. Now, you've heard me before. I can spot some places where there's an entire meeting missing and where there is a sudden jump in the transcript. That is, this is weird. Why does he question, answer, and then boom, immediately something else? And I believe it's because court reporter or clerk of court or whatever she calls herself, Jody, she's simply either really bad at her job or she editorializes what we have. Today we have reached the March 18 motion to dismiss hearing. And in it, we have Todd Click, who was one of the authors of the 85-page Odinist report. I read the 13-page summary a couple of weeks ago, but that is based on an 85-page Odinist Theory report. And that one we still haven't seen. At least I haven't. Hopefully someday we get that full report. But as of now, we don't have it. But what we do have here is Todd Click. Todd Click was scheduled to testify for the defense, but 3 days before trial start, they arrested him for sham charges. He's still awaiting trial. Still awaiting trial. And it's a disgrace. But just to make you know, this is the length the state went to make sure that Rick Allen didn't have a proper defense. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Somewhere. I will actually show you. Hold on. I will show you. No, not that one. Done. I will show you. Here is from volume 2. Initial hearing. This is the arraignment in front of Judge Diener. And proceedings and blah, 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 blah. That, well, and then it goes immediately into November 22nd, 2022. And Judge Gull. What's missing here is the safekeeping order meeting that Judge Diener had with Lazenby and probably a few more. That is completely missing. What we have is the motion to amend the safekeeping order when they reference that meeting. But we don't have anything from that ex parte meeting in these transcripts. And it should be there. And if it's not there, then it should be through affidavits through Judge Diener and the involved part. Because the safekeeping order, Rick Allen wasn't notified. Rick Allen's attorney that Kathy hired was not even notified that they had. All of a sudden, Kathy just found out that Rick had been moved from jail to prison for his safety. In my opinion, that is an ex parte hearing. Those are per definition prejudicial towards the defendant. They are assumed prejudicial. Yeah, he didn't even get, as Mike says, he didn't even get a hearing. No, it was simply an ex parte meeting. And he suffered the result of it. Hello, Overdrumble. Hello, Hunter Wim. Howdy from the road. Be safe on the road. Be safe on the road. Yeah, the whole safekeeping order reads like a 4chan post. Yeah, I know. I know. So, yeah. It's insane. He's in custody. Oh, he's in prison. He was convicted. Wrongfully convicted. Yeah, and they were aware that Rick had legal representation. All right, but we are here for record of proceedings at hearing on motion to dismiss held March 18th, 2024. Hi, Derek. Good to have you here. Hi, Christine. Good to have you here. Hello, folks. Let's get right into it. Appearances, Lick Leland, Diener, Luttrell. For the defendant, Rosie Baldwin, Francis Gull, Judge, Jody, reporter. Proceedings. The court. Before we get started, and Ms. Diener, I understand you'll be easy handling the state's argument on the motion to dismiss. What do you mean easy handling? What's that comment? Oh, Click. No, Click isn't in custody. No, Click isn't in custody, I believe. Attorney Stacey Diener, yes, I will. The court. Okay, I just wanted to advise counsel that when I granted the defense request for speedy trial and set the trial as scheduled, I caused the jury office to begin the process to get the jury questionnaires out to everybody. And on March 14th, the questionnaire packets went out in the mail. That was the questionnaire that you all looked at before and submitted with a letter from the court dated March 11th, 2024 to accompany the questionnaire. And I established the same timeline that we had before. So as soon as the questionnaires come back, I will provide those to counsel on a flash drive. And then I know, before we part company here after the motion to dismiss, there are several motions filed by both sides that we'll need to address before we go off the record. So, Bradley Rossi, may I? The court, yes. Judge, with regard to the questionnaires, did the court include the proposals from both sides or? The court, yes, either side. I just didn't understand exactly. Yes. You did? The court, whatever questionnaire you all approved and submitted back to the court is the questionnaire. The court, Ms. Rossi, okay. The court, that went out. Ms. Rossi, all right, very good. Thank you. The court, I think the only thing I didn't have from counsel was a list of witnesses, but if you could provide them on the first day of jury, voir dire, we can play that downstairs for them. All right, Mr. Mullen, you may proceed on your motion to dismiss for destroying exculpatory evidence. Attorney Andrew Bolin, thank you. We'll call Todd Click. Witness sworn. You may proceed. Thank you, Judge. Direct examination of Todd Click. State your name for the record. My name is Todd Click. Spell your name if you would. C-L-A-C-K. First name is Todd. T-O-D-D. What do you do for a living? I'm currently a parole agent with the state of Indiana. What did you do prior to that? I was a police officer with Rushville Police Department. How long did you do that? A little more than 20 years, from February 6th of 2001, and then I retired December 31st of 2021. To get to the heart of this, have you worked on the Delphi case? Yes, I have. Can you tell the judge what kind of work you did on the case? I provided investigative assistance to two other detectives. Detective Greg Ferenczi, may you rest in peace, who was a Terre Haute police officer with them, and he was also an FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force member, and Detective Kevin Murphy, who was Indiana State Police Detective, who also was an FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force member. Why would the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force member, why would the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force have any interest in this case? Folks, it's because the white supremacy, diaper Nazi cosplaying as Odinists are, in some cases, regarded as a domestic terrorist organization. And what kind of things were you doing in terms of investigative support? Conducting interviews and trying to gather evidence. Over the course of how long did you do that? Roughly 3 years. I began providing assistance approximately June of 2018, and then ceased when Detective Ferenczi was shot and killed in the line of duty, July 7th and 2021. Yeah. Detective Ferenczi, the office where he resided was firebombed. He rushed out to see who did this, and he was immediately shot and killed by a former correctional officer alleged Odinist. This was 3 weeks after they submitted the report. So they worked on it for 3 years. They submit the report, and 3 weeks later, Greg Ferenczi was murdered. His murderer was declared incompetent about a year and a half ago, and still no trial. Question. All right. Can you just give a very general understanding, a little bit more detail than you did, but still general, on what kind of things you did? Well, in June of 2018, Detective Ferenczi and Detective Murphy came to Rushville to conduct an interview with a gentleman with the name of Elvis Fields. They asked to use our interview room at the Rushville Police Department. They asked me if I would be willing to operate the equipment for them. They asked me if I was familiar with Elvis Fields, to which I was. They asked if I could kind of watch the interview and kind of give my opinion on what, question, kind of the hometown opinion of. Yeah, yes. Okay, keep going. Okay, so after that, Detective Murphy and Detective Ferenczi told me that they were looking at a couple of individuals from the Delphi area. Who were they? They were Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall. Okay, keep going. They asked me if I could help maybe try and find a tie between Elvis Fields and Mr. Holder and Mr. Westfall. Okay, so that was one of your kind of things that you did in this course of this investigation. That is correct. Were you able to find any ties between Elvis Fields and Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall? Yes, I was. What ties did you find? While reviewing some photographs on Brad Holder's Facebook page, I located a photograph with approximately 5 individuals. They were all wearing Vinlander t-shirts. For those who don't know, what is Vinlander? Vinlander is a group that practices Norse and paganism religion, kind of along the Viking culture. Here's my comment. No, they are bastardizing the Aesir, my ancestors' Aesir faith. They are diaper Nazis, white supremacy, tiny wiener scum who violates my ancestors' religion. But that's just my comment here. Okay, keep going. So in the photos, I identified Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall, and there was a gentleman standing in between the two of them that I immediately recognized to be Johnny Messer. Okay, how do you know Johnny Messer? Johnny Messer is from Rushville. He has been arrested numerous times from the Rushville Police Department, so I was very familiar with Johnny. Question, okay, what else, if anything, did you do following the recognition that Johnny Messer from Rushville was hanging out with these two guys from Delphi named Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall? Okay, so I knew from previous incidents that Johnny Messer's uncle, Billy Messer, used to live with Elvis Fields. Okay, so that's another connection. That is correct. Keep going. So I contacted Detective Ferenczi and Detective Murphy and told them specifically to look at that photo and that the individual standing in between Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall was Johnny Messer, who was an individual from Rushville. Okay, was there any other? What did you do after that? Okay, so after that, I know that Ferenczi and Murphy came down to Rushville, and we had conducted an interview with Johnny Messer. Okay, and then what happened? After conducting that interview, we also conducted an interview with Taylor Hornaday, who was ex-girlfriend of Johnny Messer's. And did she provide any information that was useful in the investigation? Yes, she did. Okay, keep going. What's next? She was able to provide photographs of Johnny Messer, Patrick Westfall, Brad Holder, several other individuals that the photographs were taken during club meetings or outings that a Vinlander group conducted. Okay, what did you do then? We conducted several other interviews. I had specifically asked Johnny if he had tried to recruit anyone else from the Rushville area to be a part of this Vinlander group. He denied that he did. Ms. Diener, Judge, I'm going to object to him reporting on what Johnny Messer may have told him. Sustained. Ms. Diener, Johnny Messer is not here to testify. After your interview with Johnny Messer, what then did you do? I conducted several interviews of people that I knew were connected to Johnny Messer, and those individuals told me that Johnny had tried to recruit them into the Vinlander group. Okay, so after you learn that Johnny Messer is recruiting people, then what do you do? We had also, during our interview with Taylor Hornaday, she had given us a cell phone of hers. Well, she had indicated that there was a cell phone of hers that contained recordings of a kidnapping that Johnny was involved in. So we obtained a search warrant to go into that cell phone and conduct a forensics exam to retrieve those recordings. Okay, was that fruitful? There was a recording. There were recordings of Johnny Messer and another individual kidnapping an individual at gunpoint in the Annapolis area. What then did he do? At that point, we tried to identify who the victim of that kidnapping was, but we were unsuccessful. Okay, keep going. What was kind of the next big thing that you did on this case? All right, we conducted some other interviews. We have spoken to Joyce Moffitt, who is Elvis Field's sister. During that interview, she confirmed that she had heard Elvis make comments about things associated with the crime scene, the murder crime scene of Abby Williams and Liberty German. Okay, what did you do with that information, or what did you do next? That information was given, of course. Myself, Murphy, and Ferenczi were aware of that information. And I was told by Ferenczi and Murphy that they were going to try to contact Unified Command to try to obtain a search warrant for the residence of Elvis Fields. Okay, what happened with that? We never heard anything. Reminder, folks, this here is before Rick was arrested. Years before he was arrested. Unified Command never called and said, yep, tell us what information, and we'll try to get that. Yeah, I Murphy and Ferenczi were unable to give me an answer as to whether or not we were authorized to get a search warrant. So, Joyce Moffitt, Elvis' sister, says basically he's somehow involved in the crime and you weren't able to secure a search warrant of any type. That is correct. Okay, what happened next? We conducted several other interviews throughout that time frame. Okay. Was there any other connection between Elvis Fields and Brad Holder that you know of? We were able to connect Elvis Fields to a gentleman by the name of Josh Chrisman. Josh Chrisman was originally part of a group called the American Guard. There was a rally that was held in Indianapolis, approximately 2016, where the American Guard and Vinlanders were together. And after that rally, they had a house party at a gentleman's house by the name of Mickey McGinley. Mickey McGinley? McGinley, yes, thank you. Mr. McGinley was also a Vinlander. He was also friends with a gentleman with the name of Brian James, who was the head of the American Guard. Okay. So we were able to connect John Krishman. We knew that he was a semi-truck driver that conducted deliveries for a company called Flynn Livestock that would transport hogs to different facilities. I know that Fishman's pig farm in Delphi and then the Tyson plant in Logansport that they would make deliveries to. Elvis Fields kind of worked under the table at Flynn Livestock, and he would get paid by the drivers to load and unload the semis, and he would periodically ride with the drivers to make the deliveries. So Johnny Messer knew what's this guy's name, the new guy that you were just talking about, John Krishman. And John Krishman knew Elvis Fields. Yes, that is correct. Okay, so that's another connection. Were there any other connections to Brad Holder between Elvis Fields and Brad Holder? Between John Krishman and Johnny Messer, I don't recall any others. Okay. Do you recall if there were any Facebook photos that you had looked at where Brad Holder was following Elvis Fields or vice versa? There were some pictures on Elvis Fields' Facebook page and Brad Holder's Facebook page that was very similar in nature. What do you mean by that? There were pictures of sticks that was placed in different arrangements. I know that there was a picture of a folding pocket knife that they each had. They each had similar picture of trees. It was just the similarities were very odd. Okay, so that could be another connection between Brad Holder and Elvis Fields. We believe so, yes. Did Elvis Fields ever admit to anybody else or say anything else that was suspicious or would show that he might have been involved in these murders? Miss Diener, Judge, I'm going to object. Their motion is about a missing audio recording of a Brad Holder interview, and I'm not sure what the connection with Elvis Fields or how this is helpful to us with regard to their motion. The court. How is this relevant to your motion? Judge, Mr. McLeland, in his response to our motion, said that two things. Number one, that the missing document, the missing video, is not either exculpatory or material useful for the defense. What I'm doing right now is laying down the foundation that at the end of the road, you will see, yeah, it actually could be materially useful to the defense based upon his investigation, number one. Number two, you will be finding in a moment that, well, Mr. McLeland argued bad faith. You have to prove bad faith. Well, that's difficult to do, and part of what is happening here is you're going to learn that Mr. Click, that the law enforcement working on this case operated in bad faith in that they refused to investigate. They tried to, in conjunction with other evidence that I will be talking about. The court. Okay, so we're going to get to this evidence then. Yes. Is that what you're telling me? Yes. Then let's get to that evidence. Yes, shall we? I mean, it may not be through this witness. It might be through others. Well, let's get to it then, sir. Okay. Question. Did Elvis Fields make any admissions that you know of about being involved in the crime? Ms. Diener, objection. I would ask that those be admission made to him. The court sustained. Ms. Mullen, Judge, hearsay. There's a hearsay exception against interest, and that's if somebody says, I was involved in a crime, that would be against their interest. The court, to whom? It'll be against their own interest. Quote, unquote, I killed somebody. That would be, that's not hearsay, that's an exception to the hearsay. The court, the objection was that it wasn't to this gentleman here. Oh, that's what I sustained. Did you ever hear Elvis Fields say anything where he was involved in this crime as part of your investigation? Elvis did not say anything to me directly, no. Did he say anything to Kevin Murphy? There was, back in February of 2018, I believe Jerry Holman and Kevin Murphy interviewed Elvis Fields at the Rushville Police Department. And when Murphy took Elvis back to his trailer, Elvis approached Detective Murphy and said, hey, if my spit is found on those girls, and I got a reason for why it's there, I'll be okay, correct? This was 2018. In front of Detective Murphy. Information Detective Murphy relayed to Detective Holman. But no nexus according to Judge Gull. There's no nexus. Okay, after that type of information, do you know if that was relayed? Was that part of that information, if you know, was related to the United Command here to try to see if they would be willing to get a search warrant for Elvis Fields' house? Yes. And that was, if I recall, that was part of there was some statement that Elvis had made to his sister that initially prompted the investigation into Elvis Fields. Okay, and was that Joyce Moffitt or somebody else? That was a different sister. Okay, what did that part of your investigation reveal? Elvis has made some statements to his sister Mary Abrams. I don't recall exactly all of the words that he used, but he had told Mary that he was going to go away for a while. He had done something bad to some girls. He was on a high bridge, that they had placed sticks in one of the girls' hair to represent antlers. Folks, at that time in 2018, nobody knew about the sticks in the hair. This is something that only a person who was actually at the crime scene would have known. Yeah, back in 2018, it wasn't public about the Odinist theory. That now there were some. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what was out and what wasn't out, but folks knew that Vinlanders had been interviewed. Westfall and Holder were interviewed days after. As a matter of fact, Brad Holder was interviewed on, I want to say February 15th, 2 days as a person of interest, because his son dated one of the victims. So he was interviewed. Then on the 16th, the crime scene was released. On the 17th, Patrick Westfall was interviewed. And all of a sudden, they decided to reclose the crime scene. At the same day, they interviewed Patrick Westfall. So yeah, the original persons of interest were Vinlanders. Why would they interview Vinlanders unless they looked at the crime scene and said, this looks ritualistic? And then, all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, they abandoned it. I wonder if it had something to do with that Brad Holder is a member in the same Freemasons lodge as prosecutor McLeland. Let's continue. That he was in a gang and they had a brother now. He had a brother now. He had a what now? Miss Diener, Judge, I'd like to renew the objection. It's not bringing us back to Brad Holder. The court. We're kind of wandering far afield here. You said you get to the evidence. Let's get there. Okay. After Richard, well, how much stuff was out there, in your opinion, that would cause a good investigator to think Elvis Fields and Brad Holder were somehow connected to these murders? It was the belief of Murphy, Ferenczi, and I that there was a strong likelihood that Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, and Elvis Fields had a strong involvement in the murders of the girls. In 2018, folks. Okay, so how did this investigation on your end wind down? My investigation came to an end when Detective Ferenczi was shot and killed in the line of duty. And then what happened after that? What did you do then, if anything, on the Delphi case? I did absolutely, Ms. Diener, I may object again and be more specific in my objection. We are talking about a recording of Brad Holder on February 17th. He was interviewed. All of this is years later. And they have to show how we would know that this evidence is exculpatory in 2017 when the recording goes missing. You can't. Doesn't have to be exculpatory. It has to be useful for the defense. And it's useful for the defense because there is a 3-year investigation leading officers to believe that Brad Holder was involved in the murders, which means they could use that recording for impeachment purposes if Brad Holder all of a sudden decides to say something completely different on the fucking stand. When the recording goes missing, I don't think that I'm of the opinion that the recording didn't go missing in 2017. It was deleted 70 days. Was deleted or just hidden from the defense once the Franks motion came out. That is my opinion. In order to meet the threshold for material exculpatory, we're not getting there, and it doesn't seem to be going in that direction, and it's irrelevant to what was known in 2017 when the recording went missing. Mr. Baldwin. Again, Judge, Mr. McLeland responded to my motion, citing case law that says, number one, you have to show that it, as Ms. Diener just said, that it is either exculpatory or the other word was materially useful for the defense. This is all foundational for what now I'm about to get into, which is what happened after he was done, what was done or what wasn't done. Bad faith, very difficult to prove, and that's what we're going to be venturing into that territory. But also, it's going to show that what could have been or would have been on those missing videos would have certainly been useful for the defense. Material, useful, and or exculpatory, and that's for the court to decide. I have to sustain the objection. Of course you do. Question. Did you have a chance? Well, next. What did you do? What did you then? What was this next time you did anything on the Delphi case? I did nothing further after Detective Ferenczi was shot and killed. After Richard Allen was arrested, what, if anything, did you do? I eventually contacted a friend of mine who was a former prosecutor and was a criminal defense attorney. Why did you do that? After Richard Allen was arrested, I was initially kind of shocked and confused. I read the affidavit, the probable cause affidavit for the arrest, and I felt like the investigative information that Director Ferenczi, Murphy, and I had compiled was more compelling than what was contained within the probable cause affidavit for Richard Allen's arrest. Question. So what did you do based upon that thought? Well, I wasn't sure exactly what to do. So I reached out to a friend of mine, former prosecutor and defense attorney, for advice on what I should do. And what did you do after talking with him? We decided that we would draft a letter to Mr. McLeland's office, and that's what we did. Okay, I'm handing you what's been marked now as Defendant's Exhibit A. If I could get you to review that for me, and when you're done, let me know. Yes, this is part of the letter that was submitted to Mr. McLeland's office. Okay, and that was sent by certified mail. Yes, sir, it was. What date? It would have been sent in the mail on April 28th of 2023. Who did you send it to? Mr. McLeland's office. What was your reasoning for writing the letter? Just to make sure that he was aware of the investigative work that Murphy, Ferenczi, and I had conducted. Would you also say your, Mr. Bowling, well, I'll move to admit defendant's Exhibit A. Exhibit A offered. Yeah, this goes to because McLeland, for the this was submitted to him in April of 2023. The Odinist report, the Frank's memo was in September of 2023. In between that time, McLeland went from there is nothing else. There's nothing. But eventually, the defense found out, and then he had to send over the Purdue professor, the name of that professor, and other things. Then he had to. He tried and tried to hide all of this from the defense. Ms. Diener, Judge, this letter refers to his report, and it is a letter from 2023. And he indicated that he began his participation in June of 2018, and the rules regarding the case law regarding a motion to dismiss for destruction of exculpatory evidence, or even in the alternative, if it's potentially useful, determining whether the state acted in bad faith, has to do with what was known at the time of the particular item of the evidence being lost, missing, lost, or destroyed. This is far beyond that time period, and our argument is that it's not relevant for purposes of this hearing. Any response? Mr. Baldwin, if you're hiding evidence back in 2017, it might be something that you would do in 2023, and that's where this is headed. So, Ms. Diener, there's been no testimony of hidden defense evidence, Judge. Mr. Baldwin, well, we're about to get into that. You keep telling me we're about to get into that, sir, and Mr. Baldwin, it takes time, Judge. I'm sorry, I will. The court, I will show defendant's admitted over objection. I think the objection goes to the weight I will give this particular exhibit rather than its admissibility. See, Judge Gull knows. Here, it's not of the goodness of her heart, but not admitting this, reversible error. This would have been motion to dismiss if she refused to admit certain evidence. This would have been appealed immediately. Defendant's Exhibit A admitted. Mr. Baldwin, thank you, Judge. In this document, you say, I want to write to ensure you're being provided all of the information associated with the investigative efforts for your use in this case and for disclosure to opposing counsel as provided by law. Is that right? That is correct. Why do you do that? Per the advice of my attorney, any information that was presented to the prosecutor's office should also be discoverable to any defense counsel. Okay. Is that all that you provided in the letter, the certified mailing that you sent to Nick McClelland? There was also a brief summary of our investigative product. I'm going to hand you what's now been marked as Defendant's Exhibit B and ask you to review that. Tell me when you're ready. Yes, this is the investigative summary that was included with the letter to Mr. McClelland's office. That would be the 13-page Odinist report. The summary that was based on the 85-page Odinist report that we still haven't seen. Question, pretty much, or if not all, or what you have already previously testified to is contained in Exhibit D. For the most part, yes. It's volume okay. Move to admit Exhibit B. State objects for the same reason. It's outside the scope on what's relevant to the evaluation of a missing recording from February 17th, 2017, discovered missing that same year. Yeah, you claim it was discovered missing in August of 2017. Then why didn't McClelland say that until maybe a few weeks before this hearing? The court, I'll show B is admitted over objection. It gauges the weight rather than admissibility. Exhibit B admitted. So that was April the 29th that you sent this document detailing much what your investigation involving Holder, Westfall, and Fields. Is that correct? That is correct. So did you hear from McClelland at any time during May of 2023? No, I did not. What about June of 2023? No, I did not. July? No. August? I was contacted by Mr. Mullins of McClelland's office, and it was mid-August, I believe, of 2023. Tell me about that. He wanted to set up a meeting with me and Detective Holman and asked that I provide all my investigative materials, which would include police reports, audio, video recordings of interviews, and then they told me that they would sit down with me to go over some of the evidence that they had against Mr. Allen to try to put my mind at ease. Why the fuck would you do that? Why? The purpose here is not for you to tell Todd Click you're wrong. The purpose is we got this. We have to hand it over to the defense. This tells me, now I already believed it, but it further strengthened my opinion that they were trying to influence Mr. Click to stop talking, to stop being a nuisance, to stop trying to help the defense. And he didn't. He was scheduled to testify for the defense, and 3 days before trial, he was arrested under bogus charges. Put your mind at ease? That is correct. I want to talk about some videotapes of who. Who did you? Well, strike that. Did you do that when you arrived? Yes, I did. Okay. Did Mr. McLeland ask you in May, or anybody from law enforcement ask you to bring any of those items in May of 2023? No, sir. Did they? Anybody in law enforcement or in Mr. McLeland's office ask you to bring any of those pieces of evidence, videos of Elvis Fields and others in June? No. July? No. But it was in August of 2023. Yes. All right. So then what did you do? I went to the Indiana State Police post and met with the detectives, Mr. Holman and Mr. Vido, phonetic, I believe. What happened there? I provided them with everything that I had. I provided them with a thumb drive that contained all the interviews that was conducted. I believe there was some cell phone extraction data that was included in that, like my audio and video interviews. And then I sat down with Detective Vido for approximately an hour or so and just kind of gave a brief summary of the investigative work that Ferenczi, Murphy, and I had completed. Did they seem interested in your investigative efforts? In my opinion, no. Well, you said you were there because you were, how is it that you phrased it? You were concerned. Part of it was that they were going to show me evidence against Mr. Allen to help put my mind at ease. Did they do that? No! After this meeting with Vido and Holman and whoever else you said, what then happened? I left the state police post. As I was walking out, I noticed Brad Holder sitting in the front lobby. Why the fuck would Brad Holder be in the state police post the same time as Todd Click is doing this? Coincidence? Or was he there to be briefed? I went out to my car and drove back to Rushville. After you drove back to Rushville, what? How often, if ever, did anybody from law enforcement contact you about what you had just provided them? I was never contacted. Did you ever contact them? I contacted them. I contacted Detective Holman, and why did you do that? Shortly after the Franks memorandum had been released, I was contacted by a friend of mine that stated a female by the name of Alicia Cole, who had a child with Johnny Messer, had a cell phone of Johnny's that she believed I might be interested in. Were you aware during the course of your investigation, before you kind of got off the investigation, of a phone that you would have liked to have had? Yes, we searched for several cell phones belonging to Johnny Messer that Johnny would have been using during that time that Abby and Libby would have been killed. We actually refer to that cell phone as the Goldilocks cell phone. We believe that there might have been information contained on that cell phone. Okay, so what did you do once you heard that somebody had contacted you about a cell phone that belonged to Johnny Messer? Did you say in 2017? That is correct. What did you then do? Ms. Diener, Judge, I may renew my objection unless this Johnny Messer cell phone relates somehow to Brad Holder. The court, yeah. Ms. Bowling, it does. The court sustained. Did you count, Mr. Baldwin? I don't know where I can go, Judge. I mean, Question: did you contact anyone about this phone to go from law enforcement side to go pick up this phone with evidence that you thought might be on there from 2017? I contacted Detective Holman. Okay, and what happened? I checked with Alicia Cole. When I spoke with Detective Holman, I explained to him the significance that we felt the cell phone provided. Detective Holman said he would make arrangement to obtain that cell phone. I contacted Alicia Cole and told her that a Detective Holman from the state police would be contacting her to retrieve that cell phone. After approximately 2 weeks, I contacted Alicia just to make sure that cell phone had been recovered by the state police, and it had not been. And then what happened? At that time, I contacted Brian Alvey, who is an investigator for your criminal defense team, advised him of the cell phone, and he went and retrieved the cell phone. So, of course, the state isn't interested in it, because it would ruin their case. Like everything in the Odinist theory. And that is why Judge Gull ultimately denied the third-party culprit defense. Because no nexus. Several people confessing. Cell phone extractions. Photos and descriptions that nobody but the killer would have known. Because the sticks in the hair wasn't known to the public until sometime after the Franks memo. Are you familiar with Cellebrite? And once tell the judge what Cellebrite is and what you know, how to use it. Cellebrite is a program that law enforcement uses to extract data from electronic devices. You can, for a cell phone example, you can recover data that is currently on the cell phone, and you can recover data that has been deleted from the cell phone. Okay, have you had a chance to look at the result of a phone dump from 2023? I briefly looked at it, yes. Okay, I want to hand you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit C, or should be. Are you familiar with this thumb drive? Yes, I am. Okay, what is that? This is the thumb drive that contains the extracted data from Patrick Westfall's cell phone. How much data was on there in terms of the dates? From what date to what date? There wasn't. Ms. Dina, Judge, may I interrupt with a preliminary question? The court, yes. Ms. Dina, did you already testify as to where the Westfall phone dump come from? No, I did not testify to that. Ms. Dina, I would object on foundation. Foundation? Question: where did you get the phone dump information from? From you, sir. Okay. What? I asked you to review that for me? That is correct. Ms. Diener, do you have specialized training in Cellebrite? I have not been trained on the Cellebrite program. However, I'm very familiar with the reports that are generated from cell phone extractions. But you're not trained. I have not been trained by the Cellebrite company, no. And when you were a law enforcement officer, did you have access to Cellebrite equipment in order to operate that and to complete examinations with regard to a Cellebrite dump? When I was a detective, I was an investigator for the Indiana State Police Crimes Against Children Task Force. Any cell phone that we had that we were going to do a forensic examination on, we would take to the Indiana State Police Cybercrimes Unit. They would extract the data, and then they would provide me with the data that was extracted. Ms. Diener, no other questions? Yeah, she lost that one. And sir, that phone dump that you looked at today, that's what you have seen in other cases. That's the extraction. That is correct. What dates did Patrick Westfall on his phone have for that extraction? The first date of significant extracted detail I saw was on August 12th of 2023. What about the last date? I did not review that. Okay, did you see anything in July of 2023? Text, emails, photographs, anything like that? No, I did not. What about, let's go back to April. Anything in April? No, sir. Anything in January? Excuse me, would counsel approach, please? Why is she doing a sidebar all of a sudden? The court. None of this is in your motion. Not one shred of this is in your motion. Your motion deals with a document dated February 17th. It is an FBI report of Brad Holder. And on the same day, strike that February 19th, the interview of Patrick Westphal. That is what you have complained about in your motion. Right. None of this is in your motion, Mr. Baldwin. This is the evidence to support the motion and to counteract Mr. McLeland's argument that there's not bad faith, and that this is the court. This is very specific, Mr. Baldwin. You did not incorporate any of this information in your motion to dismiss. Ms. Diener, may I speak to our response? The court, sure. Our response about bad faith. We don't even get to bad faith unless they show that it's exculpatory, and then in the alternative that is potentially useful. We haven't even gotten to potentially useful for the recording that's missing of Brad Holder. So our response about bad faith is after we get through whether we're in the category of materially exculpatory, which is the heading of their motion, or potentially useful, and we aren't at either one. Mr. Baldwin, what you will learn, Judge, is that Patrick Westphal, he brought his phone into the police at their request, and the phone that he brought to them only had 4 days, knowing that he was going there, that he brought a phone with no data on it, predating when he knew who was going in there. I.e., it's either scrubbed or he brought in a new phone. And that goes towards, Judge, showing that he had a predisposition, or he was trying to hide evidence. And when he is trying to hide evidence, that then goes towards, well, if he was trying to hide evidence in 2023, what was he doing back in 2017? The court, then perhaps you should have pled that, because you did not plead that in this particular motion I am holding in my hand. Ms. Diener, and if I may say, Judge, the content of the motion with regard to Patrick Westphal said that they had been given a narrative, and there is no recording, and they are speculating as to whether not telling the truth about whether there's a recording. So I have a witness here to testify to that effect. Of course you do. So our preparation has been for the allegation of a dismissal based on destruction of exculpatory evidence. It is specific to a recording of Brad Holder on February 17th of 2017 that was discovered missing or lost in August of 2017. That is their time window. It should, no. Prove that it was discovered, not by testimony. Prove by actual data that somebody wrote a report in August of 2017 that they shit their pants and deleted 70 days of interviews. There are none. There's testimony to it, but with no contemporaneous report to back it up. The court, and I've given you a lot of leeway. None of this testimony, very little of his testimony deals with your motion to dismiss for destroying exculpatory evidence as you pled. You can stand there and tell me all you want, but this is what you pled, and I'm not hearing any evidence about that. Mr. Baldwin, in order to win on that, we don't have to plead everything that is going to happen in a trial. I mean, no, but you do in a motion to dismiss. You have to put the other party on notice, which you did, and they filed a particularized response to it. Well, if you're not going to allow me to do it, I can do an offer to prove, and we can move this hearing along a little bit more quickly. You can do an offer to prove, that's fine, yes. And it relates to Patrick Westphal and his phone. Ms. Diener, the court, as it relates to Ms. Diener to Brad Holder, the court, what you have in your pleading. Ms. Diener, Brad Holder is the missing interview. That's what's destroyed. Mr. Mullen, well, Patrick Westphal too. Ms. Diener, no, he does not have a recording. Why would they not record an interview with Patrick Westphal 5 days after the girls were found murdered? But that's the thing about proving a negative. They're asking the defense to prove a negative, which is impossible. You can inference it is missing. Good police would have recorded it. But then, as we saw in the YSL case, they will lie. as they did in the YSL case, as they did in the Can Read case, and as they are doing now. They will lie. You've been given the narrative of Patrick Westphal. There is no recording, Mr. Baldwin. That's the point, Ms. Dino. You're alleging, Mr. Baldwin. That's the point. There is not a recording, Attorney James Luttrell. That's not destruction of evidence. Ms. Dino, your dismissal based on destruction of evidence. Mr. Baldwin, yeah, all right. The court, okay, so let's get to that. Ms. Baldwin, okay. And if you want to do an offer to prove, do an offer to prove. Mr. Baldwin, I'll do an offer to prove. All right, let's move on to Brad Holder. You said you saw Brad Holder outside of the interview room, correct, when you left? I saw him in the lobby of the State Police Post. What kind of questions would you expect State Police to be asking Brad Holder in an interview as an investigator? Mr. Dino, objection, Judge, speculation. The court sustained. Question, I'm handing you what's going to be marked as Defendant's Exhibit D. Can you identify that for me, please? Yes, this is a thumb drive that contains the audio recording of an interview conducted with Brad Holder. I believe this is the re-interview. Okay, here's the timeline, folks. They claim they did a recorded interview with Brad Holder, February 17th. They claim they discovered that recording was deleted in August of 2017. If they, oh shit, it's been deleted, why did they wait until 2023 to re-interview Brad Holder? Why the fuck would they wait almost 6 years to re-interview him if they knew in August of 2017 that his interview was gone? Why not immediately call him back in to re-interview? It's, in my opinion, it's because they are lying about when that and many other interviews were lost. They are lying, in my opinion. They didn't discover that they deleted it until the Franks memo. And then they made it disappear. And then they claimed, oh, we knew back in 2017 it was gone. And did you get a chance to review that? Yes, I did. Mr. Baldwin, move to admit the Defendant's Exhibit D. Ms. Diener, I have a couple more questions, Judge. Mr. Click, what date is this interview from? August 30th of 2023. Ms. Diener, State would object based on relevance with regard to a missing recording from 2017, which is the subject of this motion. Mr. Baldwin, this is a Brad Holder interview, Judge. That can be compared to the transcripts that are memorialized, 1 page, 100 words or something like that, memorization of the 2017 missing videotape. So I think that's certainly appropriate and relevant. Ms. Dino, Judge, I'm sorry, can you restate how that's relevant? I'm missing the connection. Mr. Baldwin, well, there's a missing video in 2017, and then the state followed up with an interview in 2023. And what's contained in here, which is, if anything is different, that's in here versus over in 2017, that would show that missing evidence has value. So that's the relevance. Ms. Diener, Judge, the evaluation of the value of the missing evidence, again, the case law, which I'm sure the court's well familiar with, that is cited in both the defense motion and the state's response, makes it very clear that with regard to missing evidence, the evaluation is specific to the time during which the evidence went missing. That's in 2017. This interview in 2023 is not relevant to that time frame. No, but they have the 100-word summary. And if anything is different in the 2023 interview from that summary, That is impeachment. That would have shown that he said something different in 2017. That's the relevance. This interview is not relevant to the crime. It is. Again, we're way beyond what the law requires for a motion to dismiss for destruction of exculpatory evidence. The court, your objection is well founded. It's bullshit. I will show it and not admit D. Mr. Mullen, Judge, if what's contained in the memorialized transcript or report from 2017 has different information than what is contained in the 2023 interview, how can that? I don't understand how that cannot be relevant. The court, based on your pleading, sir, it's not relevant. Mr. Mullen, I will offer to prove then, if that's okay. I will summary detail what Mr. Click would have testified to and what the exhibit would show. Is that okay, Judge? Yes, make an offer to prove. I bet she did that reluctantly, but she can't stop them. Thank you. What you would learn from Mr. Click and his review of this document or this exhibit that Brad West, the 2023 videotaped interview, as well as the videotaped interview itself, is this. Brad Holder was never asked a single question about Elvis Fields. Brad Holder was never asked a single question about Johnny Messer. Brad Holder was never asked a single question about what his ex-wife, Amber Holder, said that Brad Holder confessed that Patrick Westphal was involved in the case and was involved in the murders, that Brad Holder was scared of Patrick Westphal. All of that would be missing. Also, you would find out that in the 2023 interview, Brad Holder claims that he met Abby one time. But in 2017 memorialized paper, he never met her. All of that. Yeah. So, let's reiterate. Todd Click hands over everything in May of 2023. Every connection between Brad Holder, Westphal, Messer, Fields, all of it. They re-interview Brad Holder in August of 2023 and not ask a single question from that 3-year investigation with the connections, with the admissions. What does that tell you? Tells us all they had no interest in anything that might show that Rick Allen was innocent. Hello, Mr. Jingles. Hey, folks, Mr. Jingles is here. Mr. Jingles, as you know, he is the actual owner of this channel. He runs everything in the background. And as thank you, he gets treats and toys. Well, he gets boxes where the toys used to be in. Oh, let's see here. Skinny roll. Yeah. Yeah. But apparently, from what I remember, the system would have a log of access. Yes. But I don't think the defense ever got that. Ms. Dina, Judge, I renew my objection. The statements made by counsel with regard to Brad Holder not being questioned about Fields, Messer, or the ex-wife is all conjecture to whether that information was even helpful to police. Seriously? Again, these people are not on the inside of this investigation, and they're making an evaluation from the outside and then transposing what Mr. Click knows from reviewing interviews that is being provided in defense or through his own investigation and its relevance as to what law enforcement agencies knew in 2017 with regard to the interview of Brad Holder on February 17th of 2017, and the time period between then and when the interview recording was lost. It's a very specific time frame. It's their motion. I don't understand why we're so far beyond it. Mr. Baldwin, Judge, Ms. Diener, but I appreciate your consideration. Mr. Baldwin, part of the evidence is also we did not receive any of those videos for 10 months after they were owed us. 3 months, almost 4 months after Mr. McLeland and his office was provided this documentation from Mr. Click, telling him, we have all this evidence of other suspects. I think it's all relevant, but I will move on. Please do. Actually, that's all the questions I have. Any cross? Question by Ms. Diener. Mr. Click, in 2023, you were no longer with law enforcement. That is correct. And you wrote a letter to the prosecutor about this investigation that you knew had been going on since 2017. That is correct. And you actually participated in at the request of, you described it being Ferenczi and Murphy. Is that correct? That is correct. And so if you prepared investigative materials and collected evidence and they were your connection to this investigation, why would they not have been given all your information so that it was forwarded to the Unified Command? They were provided with everything that was completed. Why didn't you do that? No, I provided them with that information. You gave it to Ferenczi and Murphy. Ferenczi and Murphy, yes. Okay. So as long as Ferenczi and Murphy passed it along, because you guys were all working together, there'd be no reason to think they didn't have it, correct? That is correct. You make statements about Mr. Holder and Mr. Westphal wearing Vinlander t-shirts. Does that mean something? Why do you know it's a Vinlander t-shirt? Because the t-shirt said Vinlander across the chest. Miss Diener, are you stupid? Didn't you review this? If this was in the hands of McLeland since May of 2023, how come you have no clue about this? Well, maybe it's because McLeland said, don't worry about it, just make it go away. You said you've known Elvis Fields for a long time. Yes, I have. He is a local in your area. Yes, he is. What's the mental capacity of Mr. Fields? I know he did not complete high school. He has. Does he have diminished mental capacity? That I do not know. Have you had contact with him? Yes, I have. Often? Yes, I have. I know he's not a very smart individual. As far as if he's been diagnosed with any type of intellectual disability or anything like that, I'm not aware. No other questions? So this is the entirety of the prosecution's theory. Oh, he's not clever, which he isn't. Therefore, he can't be trusted. If he has information only a person who had been on the crime scene, I mean, seriously. Mr. Baldwin, redirect. Did you ever run into anybody in your time as a detective that had low mental capacity that committed crimes? Yes, sir. Serious crimes? Yes, sir. Thank you. I did want to supplement my previous offer to provide with Judge, if I may, and then I'll be done with him. Go ahead. Also, you would find that on this videotaped interview of Brad Holder, he is not asked about why he and Patrick Westphal were no longer friends, as described by Amber Holder, who said that it had something to do with a ritual gone bad in a forest by a river. With that, I'm done with this witness. Ms. Diener, again, the state would object that it was not known to law enforcement at the time that the video went missing, and that's the reason that we're here. It's useful for impeachment for the defense. The court, and your objection is well noted. You may step down, sir. Thank you. Would you give that exhibit to the court reporter? The witness, I'm free to go, Your Honor. I didn't subpoena you. Okay. He's asking if he's released, and he's released from the defense. Okay. Mr. Baldwin, call Amber Holder, Brad Holder's ex-wife. State your name for the record, please. Amber Holder. How old are you, Amber? I'm 33. Okay, what do you do for a living? I'm a manager at a public storage. I work 11 properties. You work 11 properties doing that. I clean the inside of the properties and the outside and help customers. Okay, how long have you been doing that? Maybe a year and 3 months. All right. I'll get right to this. Have you ever talked to the police about the murders in Delphi? Yes. How many times? Twice. Okay, let's talk about the first time you talked to the police. You remember that where that happened? Yes, at my grandmother's. Okay, how long was that, the whole interview? Maybe an hour. What did you talk about? Objection, Judge. I would ask that he establish the date to determine relevance to this motion. When was it? Question, when was it? I'm not sure. I'm not good with dates. Was it after the girls were murdered? Yes. They were investigating the murders? Yes. Okay. Ms. Diener, I renew my objection. It still needs to be within 2017 before the video was missing. All right. That gets us to volume 4. The court, do you have the date that she was interviewed? Answer, the court, no, I'm not. I'm asking Mr. Mullen. Yeah, counsel. When was she interviewed? I think it was 2018. Okay, then again, that would be after, says Ms. Diener. Would counsel approach, please? Yeah. Why the fuck would they not interview her until 2018? And if Brad Holder was determined to be off the investigation in 2017 already, why did they feel a need to interview former Mrs. Holder? If they already determined he had nothing to do with it, why interview her? Weird, isn't it? It's almost as if Brad Holder was never off the investigation. Sidebar, conference conducted. The court, I'm sorry, I don't know how to make myself any clearer to you that you've been made specific allegations in your pleading that you're held to. Calling witnesses here that have been interviewed well past that date is not well-founded and it's improper. Mr. Baldwin, I respectfully disagree with you, Judge. I think we pled and then we prove our pleadings through other evidence. The state, in its charging information, didn't include a very single piece of information. That's not what we're here to talk about, Mr. Baldwin. We're here to talk about your motion to dismiss for destroying exculpatory evidence, where you claim that the document dated February 17th of 2017 of Mr. Holder and 19th of Westfall was destroyed. That is very narrow focus of what it is that we're here for, Mr. Baldwin. Yes, the court. And if you don't have witnesses that are going to testify to these things, you're wasting everybody's time. Mr. Baldwin, as Mr. McLeland argued in his response, Judge, that we have to prove that the state of Indiana or the law enforcement knew back in 2017 that there was material or exculpatory evidence. Or helpful evidence, and also that there was bad faith. And at the end of the road here, there is an argument to be made that back in 2017, based upon everything that you have heard, that the police, that the police knew that there was exculpatory evidence on there and that the court. And where is that evidence? That's what I keep asking you. Where is that specific evidence? Because she wasn't interviewed until 2018. So how did the police know that in 2017 when you claim they destroyed it? Mr. Baldwin, police are not ever going to say, quote, I destroyed exculpatory evidence. It's not going to happen. What is going to happen is other evidence comes out, like what's contained in the Franks memo, that shows that there is an ongoing hiding of evidence, not refusing to investigate, things like that. And this is what we're trying to do. If you expect that there's going to be a police officer that they're going to call, or that I'm going to call, that's going to say, I erased exculpatory evidence, that is never going to happen anywhere in the world. Ms. Diener, Judge, he has to show that it's exculpatory evidence based on what was known on that date or in that time frame. How the fuck would he be able to do that when he wasn't in the case until 2022? Everything he has is what he has been provided by the state and some of their own investigation. Before we have to show that it was not a result of bad faith. And if he shows it's exculpatory, bad faith doesn't even matter. If he can show exculpatory and or in the potentially useful category, that we get to show that it was not a result of bad faith. So his first burden is to show that it is materially exculpatory, the video that's missing. That's his burden. Mr. Baldwin, it's an impossible burden, Judge, because it's missing. That is unfortunate, but Mr. Diener, then consider and shift to potentially useful. That's what the case law says, Mr. Baldwin. Well, I can't change the case law. Well, this is how we prove it, is by showing other evidence of police behavior, bad behavior, not. And then you can surmise as a judge, well, if all this happened then it could have happened back then. Ms. Diener, I'm sorry, that's not what the case law indicates. No, that is not what the case law says, sir. And if that's all you have, then we're done. Then I will offer to prove. No, then we're done if that's all you have. Mr. Baldwin, I'm going to offer to prove, Judge, an offer of proof, and then we will be done. We are done, sir. Mr. Baldwin, for the record, they have a right to offer to prove so that the Court of Appeals can understand, what we're doing, and we will have no record unless I offer to prove, Judge. The court, well, you can sum up your offer to prove, Mr. Baldwin. But again, if all of the evidence that you have is after the dates that you allege, then your offer to prove is, Mr. Baldwin, if Amber, thank you, Judge. Sidebar concluded. Mr. Baldwin, if Amber Holder were allowed to testify, she would tell you that police, including Jerry Holman and the other people that were deposed by the defense counsel in August of 2023, have never talked to Amber Holder since August of 2023. She would testify that Brad Holder talked about the Delphi case, that Brad Holder told her that he and Patrick Westfall had a falling out over a ritual in the woods near a river because Patrick Westfall wanted to up the ante from animal sacrifices. If Amber Holder were allowed to testify, she would tell you that Patrick Westfall, according to Brad Holder, committed these crimes. He's protected by powerful people. She would also testify that she saw on Brad Holder's phone girls that he knew that he posed on the ground with sticks, and that she knows are runes from her own heathenism belief system. That were runes on these girls in the form of sticks, and that he had them on his phone, and there were multiple photos on his phone. And finally, that she would also testify that Brad Holder knew Abby Williams much better than he told the police. He told her that he met her several times. That is the end of my offer to prove in this witness. Thank you. The court, do you have any questions for her? Ms. Diener, I have no questions for this witness. You may step down. There are no other evidence, Judge. The defense rests. All right, Ms. Diener. Mr. Baldwin. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I apologize. I want to ask the court to take judicial notice of the Franks memo as it relates to this request to dismiss charges. That included Jerry Holman's deposition. I would also ask for the court to take judicial notice. Well, I was going to move to admit, I think the Franks memo, taking judicial notice, that will be sufficient for what I need to do and argue. Thank you. When did you file the Franks motion? September 18th, 2023. All right, I will take judicial notice of that specific Franks motion filed September 18th, 2023. And the exhibits contained in it, Judge, as also part of that. Oh, and the supplements Franks, the second Franks motion as well. We'd ask for, and its exhibit as well. That was filed, I believe, October the 3rd, 2023. I believe here Mr. Baldwin is upset because how he's actively hindered from making a proper evidentiary. They don't allow him to do anything, and that upset him. And apparently, when he's stressed out, all of a sudden, after the defense rest, he suddenly remembers, oh, I need to admit these as well. The court, so you don't wish me to take judicial notice of the supplemental motion for Frank's hearing that you filed October 2nd? I do, I must say, I thought it was October the 3rd. It was October the 2nd. Well, there's one filed October 2nd, and then there was one filed October 3rd, Mr. Baldwin, and then there was one more recent. And I'll just throw that in as well for you to take judicial notice of the one filed a week or two ago. I don't remember the date for purposes of this argument. And when did you file that one? I don't have that on the tip of my tongue here, Judge. It was a week, probably 2 weeks ago. I don't see one filed 2 or 3 weeks ago. Give me a second, I just don't have it, but I know it was filed. The court, well, I can't take judicial notice of something you can't tell me about. March 13th. Well, I take judicial notice of the Frank motions filed September 18th, October 2nd, October 3rd of 2023, and March 13th of 2024. Mr. Baldwin, Judge, does that include all the exhibits, which I'm asking for judicial notice of all the exhibits as well? The court, I don't see exhibits attached to this last one. Mr. Baldwin, yeah, I don't think there were on that one. And I don't see exhibits from the ones in October either. Then just the first one. Ms. Diener, you may proceed. Thank you. The state would call Steve Mullen. Yeah, Steve Mullen, if you followed this series, is the cop who he was a police officer back in 2017 when all of this happened. He was the deputy chief or something of the sort. And he's also the one in the district attorney's office that is responsible for handing over the evidence to the defense. Isn't that strange and convenient that a person who is so incompetent that he deletes or overwrites or whatever the claim is 70 days of interviews is the same person that is responsible for handing over evidence to the defense? It's almost as if they want him there as a firewall. So when the prosecution, oh shit, we have to send something over, he can be there and say, well, you can send this over, but not that, because that will tell the defense that Rick Allen didn't do it. Dave is here. Hello, Dave. Detective Mullen. Officer Mullen, you've only been on the stand today. Yeah, but that was the prior hearing. But I'm going to have you repeat some of that information since this is a separate hearing for a separate purpose. Okay. Please state your full name, spell your first name and last name, tell us where you're employed. Stephen L. Mullen, spelled fucktwat mit fucktwat. I'm an investigator with the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office. And when did you begin as prosecutor's investigation? In January 2020. The investigation for Abby and Libby was well underway by that time, was it not? Yes, it was. What was your position in 2017 when the murders occurred? He was the chief of police in 2017. The person responsible for every single fuck up that happened in the investigation. And I believe we covered this as well, but how many total years do you have in law enforcement? 42. I believe you indicated that you have been with the Delphi PD, then with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department as detective, then back with the city as chief, and now with the prosecutor's office. Is that correct? That is correct. And what is your role in the prosecutor's office with regard to the state versus Richard Allen? I handle and manage the evidence, most of the evidence in the Richard Allen case, and process it and make sure the defense has it in discovery. It's right there. It's right fucking there. The same moron that managed to lose 70 days of interviews, the first 70 days of this investigation in the murder, under his supervision, it disappeared. And he is the one that handled and managed the evidence. And to make sure defense has it in discovery. I am, yes. Cell phone rings. I'm sorry, Miss Diener, whose phone is going off. It almost sounds like this in the next room. Mr. Bowling, I apologize, Your Honor. Oh, It is ringing. Oh, look, an inaudible. Oh, makes it 20. We're up to 20 inaudibles so far. Attorney McLeland, Judge, there's a phone right here too. I don't know what that is. Mr. Bolin, it was turned off, but now it's on. Is this yours also, Mr. Bolin? Yeah, I can grab that later. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your question. Are you familiar with the Brad Holder interview in 2017? I am. Is there only one? That's correct. Ms. Dino, may I approach the court? You may. Mr. Bolin, I would like to show you what is marked as State Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that document? Yes, I do. Okay, how would you describe it? This is what's called an Orion document. In other words, it's a narrative of a report which Special Agent Adam Paul created after his interview with Brad Holder, and that narrative was placed into the FBI Orion RMS report system. That is part of Discovery, is that correct? Yes, it is. And that interview was on what date? It was done according to the report 2/17/2017. And Agent Paul, with what agency? Agent Paul is a special agent with the FBI. And he was assisting at the time. Yes, with his investigation. That's correct. State would move to admit Exhibit 1. No objection? Exhibit 1 admitted. You indicated that report is part of Orion and would be contained in Discovery. With regard to preparation for today's hearing, are there other places that you know that particular narrative to be located within Discovery? Yes, that narrative would also be in the FBI general reports that were furnished to us in Discovery. And did you prepare records? Mr. Dino, oh, Judge, may I go back to Exhibit 1? We would ask that be admitted under seal, because it's Discovery that has a protective order and it contains Discovery information. I think that would be appropriate. It's the report. Mr. Bolin, no objection of Brad Holder. All right, I'll show it sealed then. So I'm sorry, you compare documents with regard to Discovery on each disclosure or each disbursement to defense. Is that correct? Yes. I'd like to show what's marked as State's Exhibit 2. Just check all the pages. Make sure you recognize the entire document. Do you recognize that 19-page document? Yes. And how would you describe the contents of that exhibit? This is an example of the itemized list of Discovery which was given to the defense, and they were signed the document as having reviewed the items listed in each page. So you use this to keep track of what you've given them and on what date it was provided. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Judge, may I leave a copy with him in order to? The court, sure. State would move to admit Exhibit 2 under seal. No objection. Exhibit 2 admitted. Now, can you point to that document and provide to us information about when this narrative report of Special Agent Paul from 2/17/2017 interview of Brad Holder would have been provided? That report should have been provided in the disbursement titled 04 Allen, dated as received by an agent from Mr. Ross's office, February 13th, 2023. And when you look at the Discovery disclosure, that's number 04, by looking at that, would a person unfamiliar with the evidence drives, or how they're named, know that this report is contained within that Discovery disclosure? The disclosure says that it was a 3.5-inch SATA internal hard drive containing the files 04 Allen with several files and also a box containing hard drives. This also contained the FBI documents then. And we also maintained a copy of whatever was given to the defense and a quantification of the data that was given to them on site in a particular file that goes along with this document. And so the report that you identified in Exhibit 1, you identified as an Orion report, and you believe it to be contained in the disclosure number 4, 04. 04, yes? Yes. And that was on February 13th, 2023. That's correct. And then in preparation for today, did you also print out screenshots that would show that what is contained within Discovery disclosure number 4 to be certain that the FBI reports, the Orion reports, and the state police reports were all contained therein? I did. Here states Exhibit number 3. Can you identify that? It is 3 pages. I can. And can you describe it for the court? This is a screenshot taken from the computer screen which displays the files which were contained in this February 13th dispersal of evidence. It shows the FBI files, Indiana State Police files, some search warrants, the 04 discovery receipt actually, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Excel documents which quantify the data on the hard drives. And then on the subsequent pages, what does that provide for a reference? Thank you. The subsequent page, the next page, shows the Indiana State Police report, which at this time was redacted. And it shows 3 separate files. They received 3 separate files because the report in the system was too large for one particular case report. The next page shows the file which had the FBI general reports in it. And then the next is an Orion, the download of the Orion file dated February 12th, 2022, or no, 12/2/2022. Now the interview by Agent Paul of Brad Holder was subsequently discovered that the audio-video recording was no longer available. Is that correct? That is correct. Can you describe the circumstances and how you learned that it was no longer available? Where would you like me to begin? Yeah, folks. Here, Shitface McShitface is going to say that he knew this in August of 2017. Problem is, it wasn't disclosed to the defense until, I believe when the defense prepared for the Franks motion, they started asking for things as the Brad Holder interview, and not until then did they disclose to the defense. First of all, they claimed, I believe the first claim was there never was one, and then it came out, no, it was overwritten. Somebody forgot to turn the recorder off, so it just kept recording and then started to record over and over and over and over again, because apparently in Delphi they don't know what a stop button is. Isn't that strange? That's their claim. Nobody who conducted interviews in Delphi in 2017 know how to press stop. Do you find that credible? I do not. At the beginning of the investigation, we started out at the Delphi Police Department, and at that time, as chief, I had just installed a new interview system. It was a DVR, which we had put in because we didn't have anything sufficient in the county to be able to record interviews within the city of Delphi. So, as we used the facility at the Delphi Police Department for the investigation process, it became natural for everyone to use the interview room at the city police department, which was located downstairs inside the police department. And as interviews were conducted, officer would go into the interview room, flip on the switch on the outside, illuminate the blue light to indicate the recording was operating, and that when they concluded, they would shut the interview room, the recording off by turning the switch off. The DVR was located inside the squad room at the police department, and it was sitting on top of a filing cabinet. At that time, I was more or less obtaining the video of the DVR for the officers at their request, so they could attach it to their reports. And you were not part of the lead agencies for this investigation, is that correct? As chief of police, I was not part of the investigation, but I had become part of the unified command somehow. Let's go back here. Here it says, I was more or less obtaining the video off of the DVR for the officers at their request, so they could attach it to their reports. So is the claim here, Mr. Shitface McShitface, that nobody for 70 days asked to get video of the DVR? Not one for 70 days? Do you find that credible? I don't. Because of your position as chief of police in Delphi. Yes. And so the lead agencies would be whom, if you know? Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Department, and obviously the FBI. Okay. And so tell us about the discovery of loss of video that includes the Brad Holder February 17th, 2017 interview. Around August of 2017, oh, listen to this. Around August of 2017, I went into the police department to recover a video off of the DVR, which I believe was unrelated to this particular case, and noted that the DVR was recorded continuously. That meant that any video that was on the DVR prior to the date where it recorded up to was gone. It was no longer there, no longer recoverable. I, through my investigation, found that the last date of the interview was either the 19th of or the 20th of February 2017. So unfortunately, all of the interviews that had been conducted during that period of time and after the crime, homicide was discovered up to that date were gone. Immediately when I discovered that the recorder was recording continuously, I unplugged it and contacted the vendor, and we determined that the videos were gone and that somehow the setting had been changed in the DVR to only record when the switch was activated to record continuously, and we have no idea how it could have happened. So not until August, in an unrelated case, did anybody ask for the video to attach it to their report. So you have 2 dead girls. You have interviews after interview after interview after interview. And not until August, not one, not a single one wanted to attach video to their report. Or I'll need that video to go through it so I can write my report. No. If that have any person within those 70 days who conducted investigation in and an interview in that room and then wrote a report should be fired. I don't know this Mr. FBI agent Paul. Why didn't he ask for the interview? Have we ever heard from Agent Paul why they didn't ask for the video? I find that very, very strange that nobody between February and August went in there and said, I need that video. Question. And have you consulted with the vendor about that particular issue to discern whether it was from a person versus just a spontaneous event, like electricity going out or unplugging the equipment? I have. I talked to the vendor, and he has told me that on many occasions with the DVRs, which he uses or sells, that a power surge or unplugging the DVR could change the settings in the DVR so that it would record continuously. Where's the affidavit from that vendor? So the murders of the girls is February 13th, 2017, or that's when they're reported missing, correct? Yes. And the investigation began as soon as the bodies were found. Would that be fair to say? Yes. And then your discovery would indicate that interviews conducted in that interview room with that DVR were missing from 2014. What? Until February 20th, but not including February 20th. I think there was some still available to be seen on the 20th. So just the first few days, all of a sudden? No. The indications throughout all of this is that 70 days of interviews are gone. And here he is saying, yeah, you might still be reading something from the 20th. Really fucking convenient. Yes. And I should also add that some of the audio was missing even for the times where there were actually video visible. So there may be video that's visible, but the audio randomly sometimes is not available to be heard. Okay. And did you or anyone that you know intentionally leave the recording on so it would delete interviews? Absolutely not. Do you consider this to be either human error or just a spontaneous event with the DVR recording? That's the only explanation I can provide. That's the only explanation he can provide, unless he's lying. Now, during that time period, there was also a follow-up interview with Brad regarding Brad Holder. Is that correct? Follow-up interviews to finish the lead or tip investigation. Is that right? Can you be more specific in your question? Sure. When Brad Holder was initially interviewed, what was going on with the investigation during the first few days where the officers would be, like Special Agent Paul, would be sent to make contact with someone? Can you describe for us what's going on? Skinner says the manufacturer, they would not make such a stupid claim and would likely hang up on them, and the audio is part of the same file as the videos. They are just MPGs. Yeah, why would the manufacturer say this to them, opening them up for a major lawsuit with providing law enforcement with shit equipment? MPEGs, yeah. Why would a vendor admit to this? Opening them up for lawsuits. Yeah, I don't buy this. My recollection of the process was, as each day would happen, we would start a meeting at the beginning of the day, and tips and leads would be assigned to officers to follow up on, or throughout the day, as officers became available, they would follow up on tips and leads as they had time to do so. If people walked into the city building as a way to provide information to officers in the investigation, someone on station would take that interview and talk to the person who was providing the information. If someone came to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, they would either be instructed to come to the police department so they could talk with them there, or, clear throat, excuse me, a phone number or contact information would be forwarded to someone in the command structure so that could be followed up on as soon as possible. And were instructions given on in the morning of these daily meetings about the use of DVR if someone wished to use it? Yes, they were instructed as how to turn the recorder on and to be sure to turn it off afterwards. And when you discovered it had been continuously running, did you look to see if someone had left the switch on, which would be the case it to them to continuously run? Thank you, I did. But I knew it wasn't on because the switch was located in a very conspicuous location in the hallway at the police department. If I were to walk in the police department through the door from the outside, I would immediately see the blue light on the interview room switch, and I would realize somebody left it on, and so it would be turned off. On that day, there was no light on. And still, he claims he discovered this in August of 2017, 6 months later. If it started to write over, I mean, hard drives back then, now they could consumer-grade hard drives were commonly available in sizes like 1, 2, 4, and 8 terabytes. If he claims that it was continuously recording from February 14th to mid-August, how would anything be left on it at all if he kept overwriting it? Yeah, this is just too stupid to believe. On that day, there was no light on. Okay, and the actual hard drive in the DVR, how much data could it hold? I believe it was 6 terabytes. Okay, my report reflects the size. It's quite a lot, By today's standards, no. By 2017 standard, yes. But still, that's a fuck ton of recording if it recorded continuously between February 14th to mid-August. It's quite a lot. Okay, so my question to you is, during this time period between the first, well, let's get back to the way that leads were conveyed. So you have this meeting each day. Officers come, you have this contact with them to give them instructions. Would it be fair to say that you have different officers pretty much every day, depending on who's available? It's quite fair to say that there was different officers every day. There were officers who worked within the department who were coming every day, but there were also officers that came outside of the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, Indiana State Police. There are officers from West Lafayette, Tippecanoe, others. In fact, Special Agent Adam Pohl and Hammond, Police Sergeant Christopher Goatee, who appears on this report, or is it Goatee? Right, are not local officers. No, they are not local to our area. And so in what capacity were they at these meetings or assisting? Special Agent Pohl and Christopher Goatee were there to assist us in the process of following up on tips, and they, like the others, would be there at the beginning of the day and receive instruction, or throughout the day receive new instructions on who to go interview and follow up on. Can you give a brief description of what a person in their capacity would be asked to do when following up on a lead or tip in order to be useful to the investigation? They would seek out information from either the person that they needed to talk with, and then interview them concerning the information that was either provided about them or from them. And then, if that person would there be anything about the person that might cause the officer to need to do more than just take an initial interview? For example, find out where they were on the day of February 13th or 14th. Yes. All the officers were asked to follow up on that completely, or as much as possible, to determine where they were on February 13th, around the time we believe the homicides were to have occurred. Okay, so that brings me back to Brad Holder. Before the video was lost, or discovered lost in August of 2017, bullshit. And after Special Agent Pohl did his interview on February 17th, was there additional follow-up with regard to Bradley Holder that you know exists because of your intimate knowledge of discovery and taking care of reports with regard to this case? Yes, there is. And do you recall what that is? I'm sorry. Do you recall what that is? Yes. I'm going to show you what's marked as a State's Exhibit 4. I apologize. Can you identify that? There we go. Okay, sorry. Can you identify that? I can. Okay, can you describe that for us? This is the report which was completed by Special Agent Rich Davis of the FBI. It details follow-up which was done and relayed to him by Grid Officer, which is a task force officer assigned to the FBI, Fred Rogers, where he followed up on Brad Holder's work history on the date of February the 13th, 2017. Okay, and so that would be a lead follow-up, correct? Yes. And did the content of that provide information as to Brad Holder's whereabouts during that particular day when the murders were believed to be occurred? Yes, it did. Okay, and so with regards to leads being assigned to officers, would this lead to a particular event with regard to lead follow-up with Unified Command? Does it put in a particular category? Is it considered completed for the time being? Yes, okay. It completed the investigation concerning Mr. Holder, unless something new became available, correct? Okay, during the time period between when the first interview was taken and recorded, and the date that you were made aware that that first recording is missing, are these the only interviews of Mr. Holder that is occurred? Yes. And the second interview, or the second report, really isn't an interview of Mr. Holder. It's follow-up about Mr. Holder. Is that right? That's correct. Okay. So at the time that the video was lost, destroyed, whatever terminology one might want to use, was Brad Holder a key suspect in this case? No. Ms. Dino, the state would move for the admission of Exhibit 4 under seal. Any objection? No, I hadn't. Have you given it to me? All right. Yeah, I'll show 4 is admitted without objection and seal. Ms. Bolin, yeah, no objection, Judge. I'm sorry. Judge, I admit Exhibit 3. That was 3 pages of screenshots. You did not offer it, no? The state would move to admit Exhibit 3 with regard to the screenshots. It's a 3-page document. Offered, no objection, admitted. In fact, during the first 7 days of the investigation, from February 13th until February 20th, the period of time where the audio-video recordings are missing, was anyone considered a key suspect to your knowledge? To my knowledge, no. Do you have knowledge that Patrick Westphal was interviewed? Yes, I do. In February? Yes, I do. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 5. It has 2 pages. Can you identify them? I can. And what does that document contain? This is a report that would have been found in the FBI General Reports given to the defense in discovery, detailing the interview which took place on Sunday, February 19th. conducted by Adam Pohl and grid officer Goatee with the Hammond Police Department, where they did an interview at Patrick Westfall's residence of Patrick Westfall. And they claim they didn't even audio record it. And is that particular document also contained within Discovery? Yes. In the same location as documents with regard to Brad Holder? Yes. In the FBI general reports. And in Orion? And it is, I believe, in Orion, yes. State would move to admit Exhibit 5. No objection, admitted. There have been some questions raised about whether a video of Patrick Westfall exists or has been destroyed by the state. Do you have knowledge about that? One never existed. Yeah, but what about audio? Why would they go one FBI agent and one officer go to Patrick Westfall and not audio record it? I don't get it. And what do you rely on for that information? They went to Patrick Westfall's residence. One, it was uncommon for the FBI to record their interviews. Why? Two, we talked with Special Agent Pohl, who told us he did not record the interview by any means. Why? Special Agent Pohl, do you not record your interviews? Fuck's sake. Who told us he did not record the interview by any means and only memorialized it in his report. Why is that not an objection about hearsay here now? Agent Pohl isn't... I don't know if Agent Pohl... I haven't read that far. And just to reiterate, even though you were already answered this in the general sales, was Patrick Westfall a key suspect in 2017? No. Did you make an attempt to retrieve or somehow recreate lost video from the continuous play of the DVR? First of all, I contacted the vendor and we discussed options for recovery, and then I presented the DVR the DVR DVD to the Indiana State Police to see if they could recover the video. It was never recovered. It was never recovered? Correct. In the discovery disclosures, did you share with the defense that the DVR for the time period, February 14th until 20th, had missing files? And if so, in what way? From my memory, I believe that I informed the agent from Mr. Rossi's office that there were problems with some of the video and that they could try to recover whatever video they could from your... Why is that not written down, Mr. Stephen Mullen? Why does that have to be from memory? Problems with some of the video and that they could try to recover whatever video they could. But they had, in essence, the same thing that we did. I did not document that in any way at the time of the release at that stage before they withdrew themselves from the case. Oh, fuck you. At this time, the Indiana Supreme Court reinstated them because they were coerced into withdrawing themselves. This tells you everything you need to know about Mullins. That they keep saying, oh, that they withdrew themselves. If the Indiana fucking Supreme Court says it was, no, they didn't, it was coerced, then that never happened according to law. And he claims he did it before they withdrew themselves from the case. From memory? Yeah, you lying sack of shit. Okay, so on the discovery disclosure of or transfer to the defense that we refer to as the 04, based on the number that's on the top, it's from February 13th of 2023, that contained these interviews in written form. Is that the same day or time when you would have transferred any audio recording, or is it possible on any other day? I'm sorry, Ms. Diener, can you rephrase the question? Yeah. The 04 disclosure that you talked about that contained these written reports from FBI and Orion, if there was video recording that was also given, would that have been at the same time or some other disclosure? I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly when I gave them what I gave them at this point. I have to look at my records to be able to refresh my memory. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is self-preservation from Mr. Mullen. Because if he lied and said, yeah, I did that then he would be lying. under oath. He knows when he really can't lie under oath. That's okay. It's a lot of information. And at some point, the defense specifically asked for the video of Brad Holder. Is that correct? Yes. And was a detailed response provided through a discovery disclosure? Yes. And indicated to them that there were lost recordings? Yes. And this was one of them? Yes. Was Brad Holder's the only recording that was lost? Heavens no. Okay, and the recordings weren't just for this investigation, were they? There were other investigations that were probably conducted during that period of time in the same interview room that were destroyed as well. They should be on a Brady list somewhere because they are absolutely morons. One, if that actually happened, they are morons. If they are lying about it, they are morons for lying about it. And do you have any way of recreating a list of all the interviews that happened during that time frame? I do not. At trial, he testified that he had a list of all the interviews. And here he says, under oath, that he didn't. So was he lying here or lying at trial? I would say both, because he's a lying sack of shit. Because they didn't want to give the defense a list of the interviews, because then the defense could have gone and interviewed those people. Instead, he waited until trial to testify that he did have a list. This here, I hope, will be in the appeals, that Mullins lied. And if officers did what was expected, which is write a narrative for the interview that was recorded, then where would that information be contained? It would be contained within the reports and narratives that the officer memorialized in their interviews, and either the state police reports, the FBI reports, or perhaps in the Orion RMS system, or even other agencies, or beyond those, correct? Yes, other agencies. That's true. There were other agencies that did memorialize reports that we turned over. But the court gave us a deadline of November 1st of 2023 to provide discovery. And did you do everything you could to provide everything to them that we had? Yes, ma'am. No, you did not. In fact, we know he didn't. Do you know how we know that? Brad Weber's van. All of a sudden, Brad Weber, who between February of 2017 up until trial had said that he was servicing ATMs. Then all of a sudden he shows up at trial and says, no, he drove by close to the crime scene, roughly at the time of the state alleged the murders happened. And then after trial, a video surfaces that shows that a white car van resembling his drove past there, but not at the time that what was it, 1:32 p.m. No, 2:32 p.m. Sorry. It was driving past at 2:44 p.m., if I remember the time correctly. So not only did Brad Weber lie about his alibi, he then lied in court. Why? Because, in my opinion, McLeland asked him to lie in court. That's how we know that this here Did you provide everything you could provide? We know that's a lie. Because I don't think we know even half of the evidence that they hid from the defense. In fact, what has been your directive from Prosecutor McLennan with regard to discovery and whether there should be decisions made about what we share and what we don't share? To share everything that we have with them, even to a fault. Liar. Which means every tip that came in through the FBI tip line, they've been provided. Absolutely. If we have a record of it, they have it. Yes. In the beginning, or when did you start your discovery transfers to the defense? December 7th, 2022. And that would have been shortly after their appointment, would it not? Yes. And has it been ongoing since then, as reflected in your documents that you prepared that are in Exhibit 2? Yes. Now there's some discovery that continues to be given to them. Is that correct? Yes. Even though the deadline has passed? Yes. And some of that information is information you could not have before November 1st. Would that be fair to say? I'm sorry I couldn't hear all the question. That's okay. Some of the information you're giving them, you could not have given them before November 1st because it didn't exist. Is that fair to say? Yes. For example, what would something like that be? Recently, we recovered some interviews the state police had located on one of their devices that had been recovered because of an inquiry about an interview that had taken place, and that was furnished to us a few weeks ago, and we turned it over to the defense as soon as we got it in our hands. How the fuck did those interviews not be within the unified command? Everything that was going on with this investigation was handed over to the unified command. Either the evidence itself, the interviews itself, or reports. Here they claim, oh, they just happened to find it. Whoopsie daisy. And those interviews has actually been requested to be downloaded and attached to the state police records, was it not? Yes, and there was a report accompanying those, that evidence that was turned over to the defense. And specifically the officer who located that for you and did a supplement report. Yes, he did. Can you provide his name? Matthew J. Harper. Thank you. And then aren't you also providing information that comes in from the DOC? Department of Corrections. Yes, and so that would be discovery that was not available before November 1st. Yes. And just to be clear, before the protective order for discovery existed, were there challenges to discovery and the transfer that were then alleviated by the discovery protection order? Monstrous problems. And what were those problems? The redaction of data to remove criminal record information, social security numbers, phone numbers, anything that might identify persons' personal information, which we had talked with or interviewed or followed up on in that 6-7 year period of time. Why would you redact phone numbers in discovery to the defense? And so once that protective order for discovery was granted, you then felt comfortable duplicating discovery and providing it to the defense without redaction. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Yeah, after the protective order, they didn't have to, because then it would have been published. Okay, now I get it. Yes, because we have the assurance that that information would not get out to the public. Ms. Diener, I pass the witness. Mr. Baldwin. Cross-examination of Stephen Mullen, spelled fuckface McFuckface. Question by Mr. Baldwin. So let me get this straight. You knew in August of 2017 that Brad Holder's video was missing. It had been taped over, right? Well, I'll strike that. You knew in August of 2017 that from February, what was it? February 14th up until February 20th, that those no longer existed, those videos, right? That's correct. But then, when you provided the defense with discovery in, let's say, I think it was, the first time was in December, you didn't say, hey, by the way, I need to tell you this. There's some missing video of people that were interviewed in the early stages of the case. You didn't tell me that, did you? You didn't tell Mr. Rossi that, did you? I didn't tell you. I didn't tell Mr. Rossi, but I believe I mentioned it to you or agent, his agent. It's from memory, my memory. I didn't write it down. I didn't document it. How fucking convenient. No, I haven't seen anybody being timed out. Well, okay. Yeah, switch from top chat to live chat. Then you will get all the chats in there. But it's not okay. Well, did you tell Mr. McLeland that there were missing? Oh, yes, he knew. You did? Okay. So this is part of the packet that you just introduced into evidence. This is from August 22nd that you just introduced that into evidence. I don't know which number it is, Ms. Diener. Okay. So in August 2022, we got, you're involved in these letters that go to Mr. McLeland or come from him. I want you to look at the very bottom that I highlighted. And that's one of the exhibits that have been introduced. I don't remember which particular exhibit it was. Number 2. Exhibit 2, page 11, exhibit 2. Page 11, exhibit 2. Read the bottom of that just to yourself where I highlighted, just for ease. I'm going to ask you a question about that. Yes. May I have that? Sure. So in August of 2023, here's what you said about Brad Holder's video that we requested. Quote, you had previously received ISP report that documents those interviews and what was said in those interviews, though we did not locate any videos of those interviews. Right? Correct. What you didn't say was that's because they were taped over, did you? You didn't tell us that, did you? I didn't include that information, no. We didn't learn about that this tape over business happened until February of 2024. A few weeks before this hearing. Isn't that right? Yes. Then we asked for any reports that detail the lost recordings, and we just got that in evidence in the last couple of weeks, right? Correct. I'm going to hand you what's going to be marked as Defendant's Exhibit E and ask you to identify that for me. Thank you. Tell me if you know about that. Yes. That is a document, a report that I requested. We requested about hell. Hey, tell us about what? How did you memorialize the last videotaped interviews, right? And that's what you gave us, Exhibit C. Yes, or it doesn't. It's E. It's not dated though, is it? It's E. E. Thank you. Sorry. This document that we just got in the last couple of weeks, it's not dated, is it? There's no date on it. There's no date on it. Did you just produce this? No. You wrote this out way back in 2017. Yes. And we've just gotten it in 2024. Yes. And we had to request it, right? Yes. And that wasn't the only thing we got. I'm going to hand you what's going to be marked as Exhibit F, because we wanted all reports about anything missing. Sure. Review that document, and then this was provided to us the last couple of weeks. Tell me when you're ready to talk about it. Go ahead. This says Drive 2 containing the data of recordings made. This is in the third paragraph. Made by the DVR includes interviews in room 1, 2, and 3, and 4 were missing from the April 21st, 2017 to June 30th, 2017. Right? That's what that says. There's missing video for almost 2 months, right? I'm not certain that that was the final conclusion. I drafted this report after the incident had occurred, but in that DVD, that hard drive, there were errors associated with that DVR and the compromise on the data on it. And I explained it in the report how that occurred. You do. But the crux of it is from April 28th, 2017 to June 30th, 2017, there ain't no videos of any interviews, right? Remember just half an hour ago, he said, It was only the first few days of this investigation. He failed to say it was. It's like a commercial. Oh, but wait, there's more. I'd have to go back and review now to make sure, but I believe there may be interviews, but they may not have sound. And this was the first time this document, Exhibit F, I think it is, was given to my partner, co-counsel, and I, was within the last couple of weeks, and we had to ask for it, right? Yes. But we did get a narrative report of Brad Holder, right? Yes. About 6 paragraphs for Brad Holder. That's what his interview with police or law enforcement came down to. Just a number of paragraphs, right? Yes. How long was this interview? I don't know. What did he say in this interview? Do you know? I don't know. What happened to when you discovered in August of 2017 that his videotaped interview had been taped over? What did he say when you followed up in September of 2017 to follow up to make sure that at least that's memorialized? What was lost was memorialized closer in time to 2017. What did he say? I'm just not sure I understand your question. Did you interview back Brad Holder in August of 2017 after you found out that his video was missing, just to give a good accounting of what he said? Just another interview. I didn't. That'd been a good idea, don't you think? Objection. It wasn't his place to decide. Sustained. So I want to go through those 2 time frames. We got February what? 14th through 20th. There's not a single log, is there, of who went in and was interviewed, right? Not that I'm aware of. The early stages of an investigation. You did an investigation at some point. I talked to people and investigated leads. Would you agree with me that early on in investigation, that can be some of the most important time frame to receive information? Yes. You didn't go back and re-interview any of those people from the first few days, did you? Not just Brad Holder, but anybody whose video interview was lost. I did not. And nor did you try to recreate a log of, quote, hey, I want to send a memo out to all the police officers who interviewed people. Please tell me who you remembered videotaping because there's 6 days of lost video. Did you do anything like that? I didn't. Did law enforcement? No. No. Brad Holder was only interviewed in 2023 as a follow-up because of our depositions that was focusing on him. Would you agree? Possibly. There's no other reason you would have gone and interviewed Brad Holder then, right? I didn't interview Brad Holder. You know he was interviewed. I've heard, yes. I heard he was interviewed, and there's a report about it. I mean, if you could get the recordings back, you'll want them back. Would you agree? Absolutely. The second video time frame that we are talking about, April 28th through June 30th, there was an opportunity to unearth those lost videos with some type of Chinese equipment, software, right? Did you get the software? I turned it over to the state police for them to follow up with. Do you know whether they followed up with the Chinese software to unearth those? I know that we were able to view the videos, but some do not have audio, so it may have been successful, but limited success. Okay. So did all the videos get recovered then with this Chinese software? I can't say whether all of them were recovered. We tried to see as many as possible. Did you follow up once the Chinese software came into place and something seems, according to you, to have been recovered? Did you do a report on it and say, quote, well, here's what's been recovered, and here's, I think here's what that is, and here's what we don't have recovered. Do you have anything like that? Because I don't see any report of the Chinese software working. Is there such a report somewhere that said the Chinese software worked? I don't have it. Okay. You did these other reports, undated, right? You should have put a date on there. Thank you. Yeah, can we agree on that? I'll do better. Yeah, there were lots of tips. I mean, you're investigator for the prosecutor's office. early on, there were lots of tips about Brad Holder, right? There was a few. More than a few. More than a few, would you agree? A few. And some. And so what I understood on direct examination is that when people came in about a tip, then they were told, some of them at least, to go to the Delphi Police Department and get interviewed on video. Is that right? Yes. So some of these people that were, if there were people, these few tips that were related to Brad Holder, they would have theoretically gone into the interview room as well. Is that correct? Likely, yes. And those would be lost. Yes. And because there's no log, you don't know who was interviewed or who was even interviewed. Right. Correct. Again, at trial, this fucker said that he do have a list of the people interviewed. You should have a log, would you agree? Hindsight's 2020. And the state was talking about, well, if they go, they were trying to look for specific information like alibis and then follow up on the alibis, right? Yes. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Alibis. But would you agree with me that early on in the investigation, you don't know what's relevant or important related to things that could be found in the future? True. So it's nice that you can do an alibi. But what happens if a single sentence, would you agree that a single sentence in an interview taken in context with evidence in the future might make a big difference in the case? Objection. Speculation. I'm asking him as an investigator. Sustained. Question. And you talked and referenced one of the state's exhibits regarding, I think I have it here, the unclassified Federal Bureau of Investigation 41317 follow-up on Brad Holder's alibi. Right. Yes. And that's entered into evidence. Here, I'll hand you this. I don't know what exhibit that is. Thank you. Ms. Dino, I believe it's 5. Mr. Mullen, exhibit 5. It says the Human Resources Director, Susan Case, said that the security camera at the scales may have picked up his vehicle. The video may have picked up the vehicle coming and going on that date, right? That's what it says. Yes. Clear throat. Excuse me, yes. Did you get that video of this from the Human Resources Director? Is that a part of discovery that we all have? No. Should have had that, right? I didn't have it. All they had really was somebody. The Human Resources Director said that somebody clocked in with Brad Holder, saying they were Brad Holder, right? That's all they said. Go ahead and read it. Quote, I suppose they would have to work with his entire shift running his machine as well. Did somebody go, is it your understanding that somebody went and talked to Bradley Holder's co-workers that day and say, hey, was Brad Holder working beside you? Ms. Diener, objection, irrelevant. The court says, I'll move on, I'm almost done. Question, did you check to see if Brad Holder switched vehicle with his oldest son that day? Has that been, again, objection? I'll move on. Ms. Diener, this officer did not complete the follow-up investigation. The court sustained. Question, would you agree with me that if an officer failed to prepare his report before the video was erased, and he was going to use that video to help supplement, as he wrote, that there may not even be a memorialized copy, could that be a possibility? Answer, it would be difficult to, if you're going to use that process, because the video was gone. However, I would say that it was a practice for a lot of officers to request the video to be retrieved from the DVR before erasal occurred. So how the fuck, if you went in there and took out, you would have noticed that it was still fucking recording. That I said this earlier. How the fuck can you sit there and claim it was continuously recorded? Because that would have meant that nobody went in and asked for videos to supplement their report. And here he is saying it was the practice for a lot of officers to request a video to be retrieved from the DVR. So what is it, Mr. Mullen? It can't be both. Okay, so that was common. Officer would come in and say, hey, I want to do a report. Can I see the video? Yes. Because there's things on a video that can be important to an officer. Gosh, I just found out this one thing over here. Let me see what was important over there on the video, right? That may be why they went to do that, right? It's possible. Yeah, you said that Brad Hawley was never. Has he ever been a key suspect in this case? He was at work. He was at work, so therefore he was never a key suspect, no matter what any other evidence that exists out there. He was at work. That was what was the report says. Patrick Westfall the same. His interview would be contained in the report that Agent Paul did. Mr. Judge, I would object to the question anyway. We're here on a motion to dismiss for destruction of exculpatory evidence or potentially useful, and that was Mr. Bolin. No more questions. Specific to Brad Holder. Sustained. Mr. Bolin, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, Judge. No more question. And a redirect, Ms. Diener. Redirect. Now, I'm already concluding that Stephen Mullen is a lying sack of shit. These are all lies in human form. Investigator Murrin, you prepared 2 documents that have been marked by defense as Exhibit E and F, which are the letters regarding the 2 different issues with DVR recordings. They do not contain dates, but they do have information at the top referencing Delphi case number and multiple others. Do you have those exhibits in front of you? I do. And so at the top, can you explain what's under investigative report for the court? It's titled Delphi Police Department Investigative Report, and it shows the Delphi Police Department case number that we did for an assist in this investigation, and the Carroll County Sheriff Department case number for the double homicide, and the state's police case number and the FBI number with their case reporting system. So when this discovery was made and you documented this information, did you share it with other law enforcement? I did. And can you tell from your memory, from these letters, who you shared it with? I certainly advised First Sergeant Holman immediately. Of course he did. And Detective Liggett, Detective Hammond, of the unfortunate events with the DVRs. Okay, and they were part of Unified Command. Yes. And so they could then pass along that to anyone that did an interview that might need to be redone or follow up, that might be necessary based on the facts that those interviews were no longer available. Is that true? That is true. And you indicated that you gave information to an agent of defense counsel. Prove it! Fuck twat. That certain data was missing when discovery was turned over. Could you expand on that? How did you identify that, and to whom would you have been speaking? An agent of Mr. Ross's office. And again, this is my memory. I didn't document it anyway. How the fuck would you not document that you told the defense a really important fact? Did you mark the hard drives? Most recent, yes, I did. The most recent after they had been placed back on the case again. I marked them, each one as having no sound or no video. So when they got discovery back after being removed and put back on the case, and you were given them discovery in January, and thereafter you marked the DVRs that had no video and no sound. So you didn't do it in the first round of discovery handover. Isn't that fucking convenient? Yes, I did. And when you say an agent of Mr. Ross's office, are you talking about Sarah Luxembourg? Yes. And isn't it true that she picked up the evidence almost every single time? Yes. Okay. Did you feel you had a report with her that you could share that with her and it would get passed along to defense counsel? Yes. Okay, no other questions. Mr. Baldwin, recross. Question. There were lots of video that had blank on it, right? That you gave Sarah. Could you have been talking about that, where you open it up and there's nothing on there? I'm not sure how they appeared on the DVD or the hard drive, excuse me. I believe only the videos that were left on the hard drive would actually appear, so you wouldn't be able to pull up something that was just blank. I'm talking about empty files that were provided to us. There were things that you told Sarah Luxembourg. Hey, you're going to open up some things and there are empty files in there. Isn't that right? Perhaps at the first, because we had, and each one of those showed in progress as we were putting more information into it. That might be in December of 22. But we didn't know about the April 28th through the June 30th, those 2 time frames of missing video, until just in the last 2 weeks. You didn't tell Sarah Luxembourg about that, did you? I'm sorry, Mr. Baldwin, I didn't hear all of your question. You know, it's late, I'm going to shut up. No more questions. Anything else, Ms. Diener? No. State of Indiana rests. You may step down. Thank you. No other witnesses. Blah, blah, blah. You should admit E and F. E and F admitted. Closing statements. Mr. Baldwin, I'll waive, Judge. Yeah. Mr. Baldwin here. I mean, Baldwin and Rossi has done immense work with this case. But it is apparent to me here, the second half of this, there's other questions he could have hammered in on. And waiving closing statements, well, even if he knew for himself that it would be a certain result, don't waive closing statements. I believe this is pure frustration on Mr. Baldwin's part. And yeah. And I understand. I mean, at this point in time, they still haven't get paid. There are issues regarding experts. The Judge Gull is doing everything in her power to more or less pull the rug from beneath them. So it's understandable, but still, it's your client's life. Ms. Diener, Judge, I believe our response filed with the court of February 22nd properly summarizes the issues and the case law, so I will waive. Okay, they waive too. All right, I will take the matter under advisement with all of the respected exhibits that have been admitted. And before you all leave, you have respectively filed. The state filed a motion for leave of court to subpoena third-party records to the Department of Corrections. I received no objections or motion to quash for the defense. The defense filed a notice of discovery indicating that Mr. Allen's medical records, part 1 and 2, had been provided to the state. So that take care of your request for the medical records. Mr. McClellan, Judge, no, because I think defense and I had a conversation. We're concerned that the records that were provided to the defense may not be a complete set of records from DOC. I found it necessary that we want the complete set of medical and mental health records to address those issues at trial. And so that is the reason we subpoena the DOC, to make sure we get the complete record from DOC. Okay, and the defendant filed a motion to compel and request for sanctions. That needs to be set for hearing. Mr. Baldwin, Judge, I amended that because after I filed it, I found an email from a few days before where Mr. McClellan had responded, and therefore I would move to, well, I would ask the court to focus on the motion to amend, because in that motion to amend, I explained that, and then I focused on the things that were satisfactorily explained or provided. The court, so you want me to just rule on the amended pleading? Correct, not on the first motion to compel. The court, and the state, you filed your response to the original pleading March 18th. So if you want to supplement, you need to do that quickly. Will do, Judge. The court, and then you also file your third Franks notice and request for a Franks hearing. I'll have to review that and issue an order. Is there anything else? Oh, before we go, then I will grant the state's motion for leave to court subpoena third-party records to the Department of Correction, both of the ones that have been filed. Mr. Rossi, Judge, I'm sorry, may I, Judge? The court, yes. Mr. Rossi, I'd like to speak on that issue, if that's okay. Sure. Ms. Rossi, actually, I'm opposed to the court granting that at this point. We're still within the 15-day notice period. And what's going on here is I made a new request on the Department of Corrections after we were reinstated in this case, and they had just provided that to me. And there's nothing untimely about any of this, but it just happened, I want to say it was last week. Ms. Gallagher from the DOC has been working with me to try to get that information. And so and when I received it, we were having difficulty essentially recovering that from their software program, which has been one of the challenges that we faced. You get discovery from one entity and it comes through Dropbox, and you get it from another entity and it comes through a Google account, and you get it from another entity and they got their own software program. And so my staff member, up until I think past Friday, was working with the DOC rep, Ms. Bedwell, to try and get that information converted into a format that we could read. And I do believe Mr. McClellan is correct. that I do think that there were information available to me that the DOC had about Mr. Allen, medical and psychiatric, when I made the first request that I didn't get. Because now that I have kind of a fresh request, I'm seeing additional stuff. So this is a long way of saying I would like a chance to review what I just received before I just agree to disclose it. Because I don't know what it is. And it's quite voluminous, as you might imagine with medical records. I know in one of the files I think I shared with Mr. McLeland was like 900 pages. So, I mean, in fairness, there was some black pages mixed in there. But my request is the court allow me the 15 days or whatever period is left to file my motion to quash. I really do believe that's probably not going to happen because I'm trying to be transparent with Mr. McLeland. I already showed him the first 2 dumps I got, so I'd like some time to look at that before the court. And 15 days is up March 29th. So it needs to be filed on or before that date. Mr. Rossi, very good, thank you. Court, okay, anything else from the state on anything that we covered yet today? No, Your Honor, I think that covers it. Anything else from the defense? No, ma'am. Mr. Baldwin, thank you. The court, thank you very much. We are completed. Jody, you can go off the record. Thank you very much. This concludes the proceedings at the hearing of motion to dismiss conducted March 18th, 2024 in this case. The next we will talk about next time is the May 7th motions hearing. That won't be tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do some more Laura Owen stuff. I discovered that I need a day or two in between because every time I read from these transcripts, it's taxing on me. It is. Because every time I read something from this transcript, all I see are things that should have told the state to just dismiss the case. That should have told Judge Gull to more or less sanction the prosecution. They have investigators there obviously lying. And just to read it and see, not only does Judge Gull do nothing about it, she encourages it. So tomorrow we will, maybe watch a Laura Owens hearing just to get up to date on that one and have some fun about that one. So with that, folks, yeah, what we learned today. Now, the motion to dismiss won't happen. We also know that she will deny the Franks hearing. We already know that. Yeah, and the fact that they are using Dropbox, seriously? Dropbox is for sharing vacation photos, not this fucking Discovery. Jesus Christ. All right, folks. That is what I had for you today. Thank you all for being here. If I missed any questions, I'm sorry. I'm so focused on what I'm reading. I hate to say this, but as I'm reading here, sometimes I don't even notice the big question marks and everything. Oh, before I forget, I discovered from yesterday, from Carly, thank you for your $5 now 2 days ago. Thank you for your $5 via PayPal. Thank you so much. That is so nice of you. Thank you so much. All right. Now I'm actually going to do one last thing before I send you off somewhere. YouTube allows me to gift 10 memberships each month. So I now gifted 5 of those. I can only give 5 at a time. It went to Skin Row, Candy Pain Attention, Hannah Needs to Yell, Gypsy Mouse, and Purple Paradox Lady Trucker. So now you have access to all my members-only content. You have early access to my videos. And you have your own emojis here on YouTube. All right. Now I'm done. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and all of that things. You know what to do. From me and Mr. Jingles. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, oh, sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Normally, he just does that squirky noise, but now I really surprised him. I'm so sorry. Oh. All right, folks. From me, Mr. Jingles, hug your family. Unless your family's shit, then screw them and give your love to the people who deserve it. All right. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Down in the shadows where the courthouse stands, a gavel cracks a fading hands. Judge Gould, they whisper with a crooked grin, played the game where justice don't win. Free Rick Allen, let him go. Chains on the innocent, don't you know? When the truth's been buried and the lies unfold, the fire in the people burns hot and cold. Prosecutor Mickelin with his papers tied wrote the tale that never saw light. Twisted words in a room of stone, left Rick Allen to stand alone.